that it was John Adams was on the control room, and I was chatting to him, oh, early start today, early away. No, I've took on a full duty today, and I went, Jesus Christ.
After months of winning the warders over with fake friendliness and tea and toast, it was time to reveal their true intentions. 38 men, a dozen with key duties, would launch an escape planned with military precision.
I went out, down the wing, out into the circle, overalls on, pistol down the belt.
Jerry Kelly followed him out a couple of minutes later from another wing. He also had a firearm. Tony McAllister followed him out, and Brendan Meade followed him out. All of those prisoners were armed with a pistol. Those were all prisoners who were orderlies in the general circle area or had reason to go in and out of it, and Screws were used to seeing them there. At the point that Bick decided the operation was ready to commence, he was to shout the word bumper.
And then Bobby's story, that was his way of getting out. He was going to bring the bumper out. Bumper is a floor polisher.
And then that was us on the move.
The bumper command signaled a 90-second countdown. In that time, Bobby Story and his team would have to silently capture 4 prison officers, all gathered in one room.
We talked about and practiced bringing a level of aggression to each of the moves in order to deter anybody from resisting us and to offset the likelihood of our having to use the firearms.
Use verbal aggression to put it across. You know, you make sure they know this is an IRA operation. You make sure that they know you will act if you have to, but you won't act if you don't have to.
And when I closed the door, there was 4 prison officers in the room. We produced our firearms. We had practiced going through the drama of very dramatically producing the guns and pointing them at their heads. And then we had to whisper, which we were concerned might undermine the effectiveness of the threat that we were trying to achieve. But we produced the guns and we said, get down on the ground. I then cocked the weapon that I had to let them know, because they're familiar with weapons, that the weapon was real and that it was ready to fire. They then moved off their seats and got on the floor.
Story would then move to a pivotal position within the circle.
Everything had to be done by line of sight. When I went out the door, Jerry Kelly could see me, Bick McFarlane could see him, the 2 lads who were talking across the circle could see me, and when they went down the wings to arrest their screw, the lads in the wings could see them.
It was like the pebble in the water. It was like a ripple effect of a pebble in the water.
And the circle's gone out in opposite direction, but at exactly the same time. And we were trying to get that effect.
So it was just that bang, 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 all second after second. As soon as I see you taking him, I take this guy here.
Key to the success of the plan was taking over the control room, which oversaw the block and communicated with the outside world.
The problem with the control room was that where he sat, you had an intercom, there was a panic button, there was a radio, and there was a telephone, right? So he had all of those, which were within his reach. So it was crucial that he didn't make a move. And he was actually the person we were most worried about. He was the person we did not want in the control room. And the problem was there was a gate between me and him. I said, don't effing move. Get on the ground. This is an IRA operation. If you move, I'll shoot. If you do what I tell, you won't be hurt. I said, if anybody phones here, you ask them what the problem is, you then take 30 seconds, and whatever the problem is, you go back to them and say, look, that's been sorted. And he says, well, what if they don't believe me? And I says, John, you make them believe you. Your life depends on it.
But there was one room in the block that was a blind spot to the men who hoped to escape from the maze that day.
We thought we had it settled when somebody came out of the ladies' toilets.
As this was happening, John Adams obviously seen his moment, and he reached out and closed the opaque door.
As the other prison officer was being overpowered, John Adams tried to raise the alarm. Kelly fired 2 shots, one of which hit Adams above the eye.
He was unconscious for, I'd say, about 30 seconds. And he woke up, and I had quite an extraordinary conversation with him around saying something like, "What did you do that for?" And he said, I don't know. I'm sorry, I just don't know why I did it. He says, "Can you get up?" And I said, "Oh, no, you can't." I says, "No, you're bleeding heavily. I will get you some help, but don't move from where you are." However, there was 2 shots fired, and the worry is that this is heard down at the front gate. I'm thinking about the thing could go entirely out of hand.
The gunshots were not heard. The prisoners had secured H7 by the skin of their teeth, but this hitch lost them valuable time that would cost them dearly later.
All screws that were arrested were then brought out of their points of wherever they were and brought into a classroom and all tied. Hands tied behind their backs and tied to each other so that they couldn't go anywhere. And pillowcases were put over their heads to stop them identifying anybody. We took the uniforms off the ones that had been identified, and our lads were getting dressed in uniforms. There was a statement read out in each of the canteens. It was an IRA statement that this was an IRA operation. The IRA had taken over the block.
We're not here for revenge. We're not here to punish us over what has happened over the hunger strike or the protest. But you need to know that if you interfere with the escape, you will be dealt with swiftly and immediately.
At that particular point, the block has been taken over. We control it. We're controlling communications in and out of the block.
Everybody then was readied for the next phase of the operation, which was the arrival of the food lorry.
We needed the lorry driver to drive us out of the block. There was a prison officer drove it. None of us could drive it out. He needed to be identified, going through the gates and stuff like that. And we needed to come up with a plan that would ensure that he would do it.
This guy was crucial to escape. Davy McLaughlin was the key pin.
So when he got out of the lorry, Jerry Kelly and I went up to him, produced firearms, very aggressively pointed them at him, told him that the block was under Republican control, that he was under arrest, that if he didn't do what he was told, that he would be shot.
This is us here at 8-7. Okay.
We made the medical room up like 3 pin boards with maps on it. We had rounds of ammunition sitting on the table and a couple of firearms, just in order that he seen that he was in an environment that we were absolutely confident in, that we would be clinical about, and that we controlled. The driver assured us that we had his full compliance, and we then started showing him the maps, and he actually started showing us small inaccuracies on the maps. And the reason for that was because he said, "I'm just showing you this in case where you're saying you turn left there, it's actually maybe 40 yards further down, but in case you think I'm driving on and doing something wrong, I don't want you to overreact on me." We then loaded up the lorry with escapees, and there was to be 38 prisoners in all. Jerry Kelly was the only prisoner that did not get into the back of the lorry. His job was to lie across the well of the lorry, below the legs of the driver.
That I would have a gun to his stomach, that if he went off, if he did anything wrong, if he did anything against what I said, then he would be shot. What we were trying to say to him was that no matter what, we're going to escape, but in one of the plans, which is the preferred plan, you live.
Last 2 on was me and Bobby. Kelly was already in the front, and we closed up the tailboard and pulled down the shutter at the back, and everybody was sitting, we're told, total and absolute silence. So we drove off out of the block, swung left and then left again up along the road towards the exit route